Hello and welcome to Money Matters. Over the last few months, Bitcoin's value has roller coastered at least 50%, both up and down, causing analysts and laymen alike to speculate how the cryptocurrency should be valued. Often called digital gold, it's similar to gold, but what are the fundamentals behind it? And is the connection to the yellow metal enough to give it staying power?
It was actually at the end of 2013, which is when Bitcoin first reached $1,000 very briefly. And I remember being in the elevator in ICC, and it was Bloomberg playing in the elevator, and they were talking about this digital money, which went from $1 to $1,000 within a couple of years. And that's when I thought, like, but that looks weird, interesting, but let me look further into that. That was the very first time I even heard the name Bitcoin.
Max, who prefers to keep his identity private, is an ex-investment banker as well as a mathematician and theoretical physicist. He bought his first stash of Bitcoin in 2014 and bought the dip that year.
The price dropped by half down to 200, but I decided I'm going to buy some more. And then I think 9 months later, it hit $600 per coin, and I decided to sell it all, which at the time seemed like a great investment, but in hindsight, it wasn't.
Bitcoin's valuation is what stumps most people. Some measure it with the same fundamentals used to value commodities or assets. Does it generate income the way property does? Does it have a use like gold, which is used to make jewelry and is seen as a store of value, even if it isn't used as a currency?
To me, it is a much better version of gold, a digital version of gold, but it has so many other utilities as an underlying layer of a totally new financial system, because you can use it as collateral for other financial contracts and even functions better as a store of value than gold itself.
Max made a deep dive into crypto in 2017, researching the details of Bitcoin and Ethereum. His initial view of it was as a digital currency that would simply make transfers as fast and easy as sending and receiving email. He realized it was a real investment asset. He invested more that year, and with its growth, Bitcoin now makes up 50% of his investment portfolio.
Within that space, the breakers, I probably have about 35-40% in Bitcoin, 20% in Ethereum, and the rest distributed over about 10-15 smaller, more risky digital assets.
Ben Quinlan, chairman of the Hong Kong FinTech Association, is a Bitcoin skeptic and questions its valuation.
I think if you go out into the market and you ask people, what is Bitcoin worth? The professional analysts and even the people on the street will say anywhere from $0 to $1 million. And I've never seen any other asset class in the world have that much variability in its forecast price.
He says his financial consultancy firm came up with 4 fundamentals to try to value Bitcoin: the cost of its production, a store of value like gold, foreign exchange reserve, and its use for payments.
But all of those things pointed to it's not worth what it was.
According to a Cambridge University study on the cost of Bitcoin production, also known as mining, this uses more electricity annually than the whole of Argentina. And what about as a form of payment?
Will it ever replace a legitimate form of currency? No, and I think that the growth of central bank digital currencies is really going to act as the primary challenger to that, and that's really going to, thwart the business case for something like BTC rising and becoming an alternative form of mainstream payment.
Ben sees value in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as an investment asset.
It's very liquid, very well traded. So, it's an asset class that an institutional mindset could get familiar with, or a professional trader could start to say, hey, there's a lot of opportunity here, right, for arbitrage, for staking, for all these other things that you could do in traditional financial markets, which you can now do in crypto land.
He suggests that part of what's driving its valuation up is the fact that institutional investors want in on the action, and this is raising its credibility. Henry Arslanian, PwC's global crypto leader, agrees.
Very close to being the fact that now we have some of the large custodians, the banks like BNY Mellon, Northern Trust, some of the banks, the household names that we all know very well, banks like DBS, JP Morgan, and others, and as well as some of the large asset managers that are entering the space. Really, those can have an outsized impact that it can have a more meaningful and long-term impact on the value and the price of Bitcoin than the simply daily back and forth, daily volatility of the price of Bitcoin.
Henry says Bitcoin's finite character in the current environment of endless quantitative easing or printing of money gives it value as a hedge against inflation.
Over the last 12 to 18 months, we saw an increased number of not only individuals, but also a lot of fund managers and corporations started looking at Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, and as a kind of a hedge against a potential currency devaluation, as well as being as a store of value.
With the zero interest rate environment and equity markets seen as inflated, the cryptocurrency market is looking attractive to many investors. Institutions wanting to roll out this new asset class to their clients have been knocking on Alessio Quagliani's door. His company provides institutional-grade investment platforms. He's currently working with 3 banks to get them into digital assets.
In the past 6 to 9 months, our business has probably grown tenfold, and the number of inquiries is increasing every day. Towards the end of last year, we've seen a steep increase in the interest of traditional financial institutions. Basically, every major bank taking the first steps to enter this market.
He says customers look for custodial services, storing and securing digital assets for institutions with high net worth individuals, family offices, and retail investors. He says he expects to see these services rolled out by next year. But with all the interest in digital assets, the Securities and Futures Commission is limiting investments into these assets to professional investors only, those who have 8 million Hong Kong dollars in liquid assets. Henry says this is an outdated way to regulate a market.
A grandmother that has no knowledge about finance, knows nothing about buying and selling or markets, but has 8 million Hong Kong dollars in cash is totally acceptable to be trading Bitcoin tomorrow morning. On the other side, somebody that is an expert in Bitcoin and trades for hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin a day and knows the topic inside out cannot trade with these platforms because he doesn't have 8 million in liquid assets, excluding cryptocurrencies, in his name, and which frankly is a very outdated way of looking at customers.
Max says he welcomes any regulations that protect investors.
Regulators have to be very careful in not overdoing it, and with heavy-handed regulation, you're likely to actually drive innovation away. So while I think it's good that the Hong Kong regulators are looking at it and are trying to protect retail investors, I think banning retail investors entirely is just the wrong way to go, because it will have these unintended consequences, that it will push retail investor into the unregulated market and probably make it much more risky.
Alessio says regulations for the digital market have to be balanced so that Hong Kong doesn't lose out to other jurisdictions that are more digitally progressive.
Companies operating in this market will have the certainty that they will be able to be competitive if they decide to operate the business in this jurisdiction. And currently, we're seeing a trend of several companies moving to other jurisdictions given the current uncertainty.
Where are they moving to?
Mainly Singapore.
Singapore knocked Hong Kong off the top of the freest economy in the world list in 2020 after 25 years running. This year, Hong Kong was off the list entirely. On top of excluding retail investors from this new asset class, Ben says it could widen the divide between the rich and the poor.
You can imagine being a retail investor, seeing that only the wealthy can invest in this asset class, which has gone up X thousand% in the past however many months. That doesn't necessarily send the right optical signal. And I think that, yes, shutting off this kind of part to a retail investor when you're seeing such a big wealth divide between the rich and the poor, and that's only getting worse, that for me is just a broader question around social unrest.
For now, investors are eyeing a new frontier of digital assets and hoping to uncover true digital gold. Coming up on Money Matters, another look at the property market of the Islands District. This week, rural living in the small city of Mui Wo. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money Matters. Before the development of Tung Chung and North Lantau into a new town, Mui Wo was the city on Lantau Island. It is a popular place for day trippers and also a growing residential area where many expats live. This week, reporter Alice Khan explores Hong Kong's rural city.
After seeing flats and land reclamation in Tung Chung, we take a boat trip to Mui Wo on the eastern coast of Lantau Island. The literal meaning of Mui Wo is plum nest. The recorded history of Mui Wo dates back to the last days of the Southern Song dynasty. Fleeing south from the invading Yun dynasty, in 1277 the Song Emperor Dun Zong sought refuge in Silvermine Bay. He died in Mui Wo in 1278, and Dun Zong's successor, Zhao Bing, was enthroned in Mui Wo. Nowadays, Mui Wo is a small city with a rural feel, a common touch that is still connected to Central with frequent ferry services. The waterfront is lined with numerous houses and hotels. Rents in Mui Wo range from $28 to $30 per square foot.
It is quite convenient.
Yes, actually, we have amenities offering daily necessities in the Mui Wo Pier area. For example, restaurants, banks, stationery.
We checked out a flat in this building. This unit is 480 square feet. It has 2 bedrooms, and the landlord is asking for $14,400 or $30 per square foot. The living room is 200 square feet. It has a large window, so natural light filters into the apartment. It has a sea and mountain view.
This side is a living room, and here is a dining area. A table can be placed here. Then sofa and a TV set can be placed here.
It doesn't have a bay window.
Actually, the space is larger than those in the city. The efficiency is higher. This is a smaller bedroom, about 40 square feet. It has sea view.
Nice view.
Yes, it is close to the sea. The breeze can come into the room.
The smaller bedroom can fit a double bed.
It can accommodate 2 people. They can turn this room into a study.
The master bedroom is about 80 square feet. It also has a sea view.
It can fit a queen-size bed. It doesn't have a bay window, so it is very practical.
There is sufficient cabinet space in the kitchen and also a few appliances. The landlord wants working expats or local young people to rent the flat.
In the pier area, many tenants are expats. They work in Central because it is convenient. Also, the rent is cheaper. The environment is better. Some locals, younger people, rent a flat here because they like the countryside.
Alice says her business jumped almost 40% over the past 6 months, after many expats downsized their living arrangements and moved to Mui Wo.
Their companies cut their housing allowances, or some of their allowances were scrapped, so they downsized their accommodation. Rent here is 30% to 40% lower than the city, so it is very attractive.
This South African pilot and his wife just moved into a 700 square foot flat in a village house that they rent for $14,000. They used to pay $17,000 for a 540 square foot flat on the waterfront. They moved into the village to save money after the airline industry was badly hit by the pandemic.
It's affected all of us tremendously because of the flights being halted. One thinks twice before you spend money, and that was part of our move here because we get to spend less on our rent and we get an upgrade on our accommodation.
The village house offers a larger living area for less money. They have bigger bedrooms, larger living and dining areas, and a decent kitchen.
This is just lovely to have more space and more bedrooms for us.
Their flat is located in Luk Te Tong village. It has 300 houses, so we checked out another flat in this 2-year-old villa.
What is the flat like?
I'll show you a 700 square foot flat on the ground floor. And it has a garden as well. This is very rare because it's a 1,500 square foot garden. Here is a garden. The previous tenant was an expat. They loved having parties here, barbecuing and gardening.
The previous tenant paid $15,000. The landlord is asking for $16,000 because of the strong demand in Mui Wo now.
Some clients used to live in the mid-levels, paying $20,000 plus for a 500, 600 square foot flat. Look at this, $16,000 for a 700 square foot flat and a garden. So they'll like this place.
The flat has 3 bedrooms. The living and dining rooms are 400 square feet. An open kitchen is next to the entrance. It is easy to lay out furniture in the versatile living room.
A sofa can be fit here. TV set is over there. Or the other way around because sockets are provided on both sides. Also, there is a sliding door leading to the garden.
The interior of the flat is different from other village houses.
This flat has a lot of windows.
Yes, actually, this is a newly built villa. The landlord. The windows are large. They brighten up the apartment.
The area are undeveloped. Some of the land are held by the local villages. If the government kick in the acquisition plan at Mui Wo, I think the price is still cheaper than the acquiring land in the new territories.
Whatever the outcome of the reclamation plans, Mui Wo will remain a rural city for some time to come. Many people like to curl up with a bedside book for a good read. Now, a Taiwan store has designed a shop to recreate the same dark and cozy atmosphere. The mood in this Taiwanese bookstore is unlike almost any other. Lighting here is so soft, it's dark. This is the Wu Guan bookstore in southern Taiwan. The darkness surrounding readers inside this shop is to allow them to focus on reading and raise awareness of their inner self as they turn the pages between the covers, if they can find any pages. Manager Su Yushan, and woman who now wishes she learned Braille, says people come in and discover it is called soul reading. Okay, so what's with all the books? Chu Chi Kang, the designer of the bookstore and man who uses four-letter words to meditate, says, "Open your eyes. The dark bookstore isn't really dark." He installed almost 500 sets of lights. They're just not seen, like the books. His goal was to let the space disappear. No, everything disappeared. It's dark. The entrance of the bookstore is designed to look like a morning shrine, so that visitors give up their ties with the material world as they enter. Customer Fanny Chang, and woman who's never given anything up until now, her sense of sight, says she's calling a lawyer after hitting her head on a hanging incense pot. Books? Where were the books? Once she found one, she says it was like reading in bed under a quilt with a reading lamp on. Keep calm, you're in a bookstore. She says she found something deep and primordial, nearly Jurassic. Remember, the dinosaurs didn't read, now they're extinct. On leaving the bookstore, you can also buy a misfortune cookie. The messages are sometimes disturbing, some are rather nasty and true. This one, perhaps for management, reads, "If you think you're poor and stupid, don't be sad. At least your judgment is correct."
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Next time on Money Matters, beach life in the Islands District. See you then.